it still feels like this hand is in front because these lines are more harsh. If we do, let's just do a really simple exercise. And I like to do this with students because no matter how simple you make something, you can still get some sort of visual effects in it. Around 2011 to 2013, I was drawing at cafes, I was drawing on the train, I was drawing on the bus, and I took a lot of those sketchbooks and compiled them into a self-published book. In this video, I'm going to be going through page by page, I'm going to be showing you what I was drawing, but I'm also going to be telling you stories about what I was dealing with when I was drawing them, and I'm going to be delivering you some secrets on how I draw. This is going to change the way you draw. This is going to change the way you draw. If you do some of these tips that I'm going to recommend to you, I could guarantee you that your drawing skills are going to change. Also, at the end of the video, I have a special offer, limited time offer. Let's jump in. This one is pretty interesting because of the way that I had this like ticking motion. If you can see these little marks. They're just not smooth lines, and it's all throughout here, like these lines here. I experiment around with a lot of different line styles as I'm drawing because it may lead to a new style. It may lead to something new. So like these lines here, they're not even trying to be straight. You could tell that they're all wavy and stuff. This is because I like to experiment. And also you can see the little dots in the face, the little marks. Same here, little marks in the face. Usually that let the viewer know that that's skin there. I could just leave it without there. Obviously, people know if I'm drawing a person, it's skin. But what I found is that adding these little marks just makes it more believable at first glance. And I really like this one because of the fingers, how fat and pudgy her fingers are. I really gave weight to her fingers. And that's how her fingers look. She probably did a lot of work in her life, a lot of work with her hands, maybe sewing, knitting, or something like that. And, you know, my hands, I think they're kind of like that too. They're a little bit pudgy. My fingers are pretty fat. And it's because of all the years of sculpting and playing, doing things with my hand and keeping my hand like this, you know. So I also like the way that I did these lines here on the jacket. They're not so pronounced. They're quite subtle. I think that those lines actually give a good balance between these lines here, which are very harsh or very dark, very thick, because I want the focus to be up here, right? So then down here, I don't want the lines to be so pronounced. Same here. This is where I want the focus, so I don't give this face so much detail. I give all the detail right here, and it's pretty dark, give a lot of darkness here. Then you have this dark contrasting with the big light areas here. But then this face is kind of in shadow somewhat. There's hardly any details. You know, you got stitch right here, whereas you have no stitch in here. And so that brings this character forward. Also, a trick that I've used for a long time by making things look like they're in front of something else is darkening the line that of the thing that's closest, the element that's closest to the camera. So if I'm drawing one hand and then another hand in back, I'm going to draw the lines of this hand a little bit darker, especially where they intersect that other hand. Let me show you what I mean. So if I draw one hand, I'm going to draw my hand real quick. And now if I draw this hand, which I can't draw, maybe I'll draw with my other hand, but no. If I draw another hand over it, let's see, I'm gonna pose this hand just so I can get an idea of what it looks like. Then I go in with a darker line. I would keep posing it because I wanna see what the pose looked like just to remember. So this hand, even though this is a line drawing and I drew through this, it still feels like this hand is in front because these lines are more harsh. If we do, let's just do a really simple exercise. And I like to do this with students because it really shows how, no matter how simple you make something, you can still get some sort of visual effects in it. So if I were to draw, let's say we have a camera scene, someone's filming someone, and then there's a person right here, standing right here. And then there's another person that's a little bit closer to the camera. So they're a little bit off camera, right? And then we have a third person who's kind of looking at them. That third person, you would draw the line a lot darker, and that would make them appear to be closer. But if we were to have a person way off in the distance down here, we draw that person very faint, right? Because if we drew it like this, then it wouldn't be so believable that they're far away. It just looks like you drew a character that's up, right? But let me draw a horizon line here. Now it looks like this person is way back here. Maybe there's somebody way back there. And then there's another person right here. And then we make this person a little bit darker, and then it just gets darker as you get closer. And then we come to this person, and we could actually add darkness to this person like this. And next thing you know, you have this visual effect. So this drawing, this is a person that I know. She's a model. She was acting. So this is an example of someone who was actually posing. I was teaching a class in San Francisco, and she posed for us. We hired her to pose for us. And so with drawings like this, I'm not only able to capture the face and the likeness and things like that, but I'm also able to finish the rest of the body because I'm not sitting on a train and my, like the chairs are blocking the bottom half of her body or something like that. This drawing, I think, came out really well. Another thing that's really cool is that how I suggested the hair here, right? But without drawing a hair line. So doing something like this. So instead of drawing a hairline, which I could have done, I could have just drawn a hairline like this. What I did is I just suggested it with different lines, separate lines that suggest that there's hair there, right? You can see that there. I think that that's a pretty slick approach. And again, this is something that I just kind of came up with on the spot. It's not necessarily anything that I practice. Also, I didn't darken in these eyebrows. See, I put another mark there on the book. Happens all the time. These are 3 students in a class that I was teaching. I believe we were drawing and using watercolors. And I think I was using a gouache pan set in this one. But anyhow, they were posing. So this is a rare example of when I'm drawing people that actually pose. And I don't typically like drawing when people are posing and looking directly at me. Sometimes I'll do it. I don't do it often. If you see a lot of my work, usually people are kind of looking away, like this person is looking that direction, this person is looking that direction. And this person was looking dead at me. Maybe he said, yeah, I just want you to draw a picture of me looking dead at you. But most of the time I tell people don't look at me. I really love this picture because can you guess what I like about this picture? What I like about this picture is that he had this kufi on, right? I guess he was Muslim, right? And he had a kufi on, and he also had, the kufi is knit. It's a knit hat, like a knit cap. And so what I did is I drew these little holes. This guy was on the bus, and I doubt that he even knew that I was drawing him. If he did, he sure didn't act like it. But here's another mistake. Can you guys see the mistake, the huge mistake? It's a mistake that I've busted myself out about a number of times. This is something that I typically do as a mistake back then in 2011. But I drew the ear really high. this ear is up really high. And I always tell people, like, this was the problem that I had back then, is I would draw ears up high. Why? Because I didn't measure things. I never take the time to, do the whole Andrew Loomis thing where you measure the eyes with the nose and the bottom of the mouth and all that other stuff. I just draw, right? And whatever happens, happens. And I would say 100% of the people who look at these drawings over the years never noticed that this ear was high. So that's one tip I want to give you, is that when you're drawing, just draw. Don't worry about measuring things. Don't worry about things coming off or whatever, because I don't really do this anymore. I don't make this mistake anymore. And I don't really call it a mistake, but I don't do this anymore. And the reason why is because I naturally let it filter out of my art without stressing over it, right? And most of the times when I was drawing, I didn't even see myself doing it, obviously. And then I would see it maybe a couple days later. Interesting that I added a little darkness right here to the back of the shirt, but there's no darkness nowhere else like that, except for the back of the shirt, because I really wanted that shirt. I just wanted to add a little bit of dimension there. This is Gold Snyder, one of my students who I talked about in the last part 2 or part 3. I'm not sure which one it was, but you'll see. And if you go back and look at the older videos, I believe this is part 3 or part 4. So this is Gold Schneider, one of the students that I was teaching at the time, and he was working on an assignment while I was drawing him. And I kind of like the animation quality of this drawing, and also the eyebrows. And I like his glasses too. This is a student. I talked about this student in another section of these video series of this particular sketchbook. So if you go back and look at the other videos, you'll see the other drawings that I did of him. Also, I really like this drawing because of the hair. So she had these braids, and my challenge to myself was to try to figure out how to draw these braids and make them look individual instead of just, filling in her hair with a bunch of fuzz. I always tried to do things that were really hard like that, especially when you're riding the train or the bus and you never know how much time you're going to have to draw these people, right? And so drawing like font like this, like the letters here, I didn't know how long I was going to have to draw that. So I'm really proud of the way that I made that come off. And I even like this pea coat style that she has. I could actually tell the style of the coat by the collar of the coat, as well as the big buttons. And then this strap here. So it's kind of like a trench coat, pea coat type style. These drawings here, it almost looks like it's the same person, but it's not. But these drawings I really like because of how minimal the lines are that suggest so much, right? I could almost probably count how many lines that I put down here. This is when I was starting to get real confident after drawing people, because back then I would literally ride the train or sit at cafes for hours, literally sit there for hours drawing people, and I would not stop. I would be hungry. I would be thinking about what I'm going to eat for dinner and all this stuff, but I would keep going. Drawing people. And I really love these glasses. The way I did these glasses here, just golden. Like this is a period when I was really studying how to draw glasses. And again, I recommend that you learn how to draw different accessories, learn how to draw watches, learn how to draw glasses, learn how to draw shoes. And when I say learn how to draw, I teach very basic fundamentals in my high-powered drawing course that you could apply to drawing anything. However, if you draw things over and over, specific things, it makes it easier to render those things when you're just drawing someone haphazardly out and about and they happen to have glasses. You're able to make those glasses look a little bit better because you've drawn them more, right? So I misspoke by saying learn how to draw. You don't learn how to draw. You just develop your ability to draw a particular accessory. This drawing I really like because of the wild lines I did with her hair. So when I look at a person, depending on how they look, like her hair, I remember her hair was really wild and I wanted to communicate that, right? But I also didn't want to do a bunch of scribble scrabble. So to kind of figure out the energy that is needed for a line to depict what you're looking at, that's the challenge of the moment. So What I mean by that is like, am I going with a more wiggly line? Am I going with a very light, subtle line that you could barely see? Or am I like really scratching on the paper like this here, you know? And I also like that I add a little bit of tint to these glasses. There's some zippers and then there's some lines here. I think she had like a texture in her shirt. And I added a lot of little dots and it really translates communicating skin in this drawing. These were two guys who were sitting on the train and I drew them 2 times. It was something about them that was very interesting. It was something about them that was very interesting to me. So I decided to draw them twice. So I drew them once right here and once right here. In this one, I didn't add any eye pupils. In this one, I did. And in this one, I gave a little bit more detail to this guy, whereas in this one, I didn't. So I kind of went back and forth, right? So then this one, they get more detail. And this one, they get a little bit less detail. But you could see this was in San Francisco. The guy had a San Francisco logo on his hat. Threw that in there. And then also, I really tried to capture the age of the hands. That was probably like one of the most important things. I could actually tell by how much care I put into these hands. That's one of the most important things of this drawing. I like the shape of this guy's head. And I could tell by the way I drew him, the fact that his hair went up to this point here, and then his beard came out to a point there, and then his nose comes out this way. It's like, and then it kind of comes back this way like that. It was something about the shape of his head that I really liked. So, you know, when you draw different people, you'll find that some people's, you know, the shapes of some people are resonating with you more than other people. I actually like this line here showing the bags of the eyes and also the way I drew his mustache there. These drawings are done with a very light hand. What I mean by light hand, meaning I was not pushing on the pen very hard. I was drawing very light. I may have been really tired at the time, or I may have been thinking of really ancient drawings and trying to mimic those styles. Because sometimes I'll have a book out next to me looking at the drawing styles. And usually back then it was like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and all these other kind of guys. And I would have those books out there, just sitting out there, and I'm looking at them while I'm drawing, trying to incorporate some of the styles that I see, some of the energy that I see into my drawing. What I really like about this drawing is the shape of the arms and the shape of his chest. I really wanted to communicate that with this guy. And that's why I believe that's exactly why I drew him. I think I put a head in there just because I needed to put a head, but I really wanted to draw his arms. His arms were well defined. He looked like he worked out. And so I wanted to try to communicate that. And I was practicing drawing that at the time. I think I was starting to draw a vein here, but because it's a pen, the line was coming out too dark, so I stopped. This guy I really like because of his eyebrows and his eyelashes, but mainly his eyebrows. His eyebrows actually grew in the direction that I drew the strokes. And that's one thing, again, I've been saying this a number of times, but that's one thing that will help your drawings look much more believable if that's what you're going for, is to draw hair and draw things in the direction that they actually grow. This guy asleep at the wheel. No, but he was reading a book. So this guy was reading a book. Again, practicing glasses here in this drawing. And also I add like a subtle shading to this side of the face, just a little bit, and then a little bit over here as a contrast to kind of balance it out. I also like the design of the jacket that I drew because he had a hoodie on, and then the folds in the fabric. There's always some folds in the fabric when a person bends their arms. And I really love this fingernail of the thumb. I think I drew, you know how on your thumb or on your fingernail, you can see well, on mine, you can't really see it that good, but there's usually a light part that shows the growth of the fingernail. And then you have the pink part, the fingernail. I drew the growth part too, right here. That is very interesting because I remember that I was purposely trying to figure out how I could do things that seemed impossible in drawing people in such a quick period of time. Remember, these people are on the BART, they're at the coffee shop, and to be able to draw something like that while you're drawing someone is very hard to do when you're on a train or you're at a coffee shop and people walking around and things like that. So that was my goal, was to figure out how much can I push the human potential to put lines on the paper in such a quick time. So like this hair here, this hair really shows the direction that his hair is going, and it suggests the roundness of his head because of the directions are shifting. I didn't just draw all the hairs going backwards. This is one of my favorite drawings because, and this is not a mistake here. It looks like I messed up, but actually I was looking at a lot of abstract art. I was looking at a lot of, art in museums, and I wanted to try it. And again, what I always say is try different things. This is something that you can see out of all the other previous drawings I hadn't done. Most of my drawings were trying to be more structured, right? Whereas this one, I purposely went off the structure road, off the beaten path into the wilderness of abstraction, right? And I think I achieved that because it sort of looks like his eyeball is like floating in space, right? And then he has two edges of his face, which is kind of weird, right? But I just love the way that came out. It's a really deep energy when you look at it and take it in. So that's something that I always recommend you do, is just try different things. If you notice right here, I think it said 23, but there's some numbers here. So like Letterman numbers, like a Letterman's jacket, there were some numbers right here. This is a cool little detail right there that I added. The fact that I would even add that when most people don't even see it when they look at this picture again. That's what I mean by adding little things that people don't see initially, but the more they look at it, they'll see it and you'll know it's there. Why? Because it'll help you start to be able to pick up more detail in a shorter period of time. A lot of times the number one assignment that I give my students is to draw the hand. And when you draw the hand, a lot of people just draw the outside of the hand. But I always say, draw these little lines here. You know what I mean? Draw all of this stuff. Even, draw this part of the wrinkles in the hand and the folds and all this other kind of stuff. This drawing, I was teaching this woman, and actually she was in a class I was teaching in Nob Hill in San Francisco. In 2011, I used to work for this place, La Casa de las Madres, and I would go teach the ladies there. I would teach them drawing and painting, and we did some sculpture. We did all sorts of stuff. And so I believe in this lesson, I was drawing them while they were drawing me and painting me. And so this one came out pretty good. This was just something, a lot of times when I'm teaching classes, I'll, while I'm waiting for the student to do their lesson, I'll just start wiggling out stuff myself. And occasionally I come up with something that I really, really like. More than occasionally, but a lot of times I come up with stuff that I really like. And so this one, what I really liked about it is that you can really feel the depth in her face. So like you feel like this eyeball right here goes in over here, the corner of the eye. You can really feel that, right? It just seems like, the eyeballs here, that it goes in. And then also this here, these sections here. I also like this highlight here. It really suggests that the light was coming in from this direction, reflecting on her lips. I think that came out really well. And then also she had this really beautiful pattern on her blouse that I tried to capture. And I think I did a pretty good job of not being too specific, but at the same time capturing the energy of what was there with the time that I had. Because again, I have to do all this stuff before the students stop, before they're finished with their work. So that's always the challenge, is how much can you get, how much detail, how much can you get in a short period of time. And sometimes I'm not trying to get a ton of detail. But if you also look here, I did a little stippling with the brush where I'm kind of like hitting the brush, like maybe a dry brush. I'll take a brush and fray it, to where it's kind of like this a little bit, and then dip it in the paint and then come in and do something like this. You can see the texture in the skin. I really wanted to show that texture in the skin. And it's interesting how I did this area too, because it was dark around her eyes a little bit, right? And then she had this little paisley pattern on her scarf. I think this drawing came out really good. So this guy here on his phone, probably on the train or something, not paying attention to me while I'm drawing him. But I also took the time to really draw this watch and make it look exactly as it did. And I really like the hands. I really like the shape of the hands, like the way that I added this knuckle here. It really bumps out. And then again, like I was saying, drawing the little lines in the knuckles, there, and then also drawing the fingernail. A lot of times we'll draw hands, but we won't draw the fingernail. And so I'll just give you a little note, is that I did a lot of drawings where I drew fingernails and it did not look right. But I would allow myself to naturally progress to where it did look right. And that is a pro tip, is allow yourself to naturally progress. Don't try to make things perfect. Just draw in the moment and have fun. And if it doesn't come out the way you want, you could do a gazillion drawings before you stop drawing at the end of your life anyway, right? So don't take it so seriously. And this is why I recommend, here's another pro tip, don't buy expensive sketchbooks, right? When I was going through this period, a lot of times I was using, actually, when I got to this level of drawing, I started using sketchbooks. But when I met my mentor and I started really learning the principles that helped me get this good, and I would say I was probably around 27 years old, I was actually drawing on copy paper, right? Copy paper, stuff you get at Staples, little, $5 for 500 sheets type, copy paper, and it comes in a thick thing. And then sometimes I would hole punch it and just put it in a 3-ring binder and make my own sketchbook. That was what my mentor recommended to me. And I did that for years, let me tell you, and it worked. Why? What's the psychology behind it is that you will not care so much about how well your drawings look when you didn't pay much for the paper. When you know you just got tons and tons of paper to go through, you'll be more experimental. And the more experimental you are, the more styles you come up with. The more styles you come up with, the more you have fun. The more you have fun, the more you want to do it. The more you do it, the better you get, and it just goes in a circle. So I recommend using the cheapest paper you could get. I would even recommend going to like Target and getting like the paper that, they use for little kids, just get that paper, draw on anything, So this drawing was pretty cool. This was one of my students. It looks like he was in middle school or high school, probably a high school student at that time. And I really like it because of the energy in the eyes and also the subtle eyebrows. I like the shape of his lips too. They kind of match the shape of his nose, how his nose goes up here, the lips goes up here, and then also the nostrils and everything. And then if you really look at it, that shape is almost repeated in the eyes here, in the eyelids, the opening of the eye, that is. In the industry of design, they would call that design language, right? So if you look at certain cars, they have certain shapes or angles that repeat throughout the car. That typically is called the design language, or certain design elements that are repeated throughout the car design or the shoe design or what have you. This is Bola again. We saw her earlier in the book. Let's see if we could go back to Bola. There she is. That was the first picture of Bola. This may have been in the same drawing session. I don't think so because she was wearing a turtleneck here. But I taught Bola and Miss Ruth Smith at the same time. Sometimes we would have double sessions where Bola would come over to Ruth's house and we would all just sit there and draw together, and I would share different drawing techniques. And Bola had a lot of fun. So with Bola, what I wanted to do is I had an emotional connection with Bola because her and Ruth became friends. I actually had her sign her name there. And she's the late Bola, rest in peace. Now Bola Thompson, actually, that's her name. And she transitioned. But anyhow, one thing I really like about this is because there was a certain affection that I had for her, I really took the time to communicate the sister locks. These are called sister locks. So it's like real skinny locks, real skinny dreadlocks. And so I really tried to take my time and communicate that, as well as the texture of her shirt, the pattern in her shirt, and also in her lips. Right here, I really tried to communicate the texture that in her lips and tried to show her age. Now, this is not easy to do, to show a person's age, especially when they're older, without making it look unflattering, right? I can't tell you how many drawings I drew of people where it was totally unflattering. They didn't like the outcome, but I was trying to be honest to what I saw. If a person had wrinkles here and a wrinkle there and wrinkles here, I would draw those wrinkles, but sometimes my hand was a little too heavy because I wasn't as rehearsed back then. And so over time, I learned how to, like right here, you could barely see this, right? You could barely see this, but these are those lines when your eyebrows go up, you get lines in your forehead. But I didn't draw those lines so dark. Why? Because it would have made her face look much different. Obviously, if you're taking a picture of somebody and you're looking at somebody and you see the wrinkles in their face, it's not going to be as pronounced as when you put a black pen against a white page and start communicating that. So over years of drawing people, I kind of learned different ways to communicate age and tell the truth about what's going on in the face without not making them look, too bad, right? This might have been, this looks like this was a mistake right here. These dots here, because she didn't have any line in her eyes right there, and she was looking down. So I don't know if that translated, but she was looking down at her sketchbook while she was drawing. This drawing I really like because of drawing the texture of the clothes as well as the animation of the face. This has an animated quality to me, and I really did like the shape of her face, the shape of her cheek, and it kind of matches with the shape of the forehead and then the back of the head and these round elements, a lot of round elements. But I really did, she had this really fun spirited shirt on, and I added some zippers and some texture to the collar of her jacket. I really like that. This guy, I don't remember where this guy was, but one thing I do like is the fact that I communicated these bags in his eyes. Again, this stuff is not easy to communicate without making the person look super old, because you notice here she has very little marks, like only marks on her face are here and like here. I didn't even draw this line here. Why? Because pen is very harsh. And so when you're drawing people who are younger, if you put too many lines on the face, they're going to go get older real fast, right? And the same with older people. You don't want to make them older than they really are or look worse, look bad, right? So taking the time to do something like this without going too far is what I really like, this balance of detail here. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoy watching it as much as I enjoy creating the drawings and sharing them with you. By the way, if you enjoyed watching this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, send a comment, let me know what you like the best. Let me know what tip you like the best. Also, if you tried the tips and then later you want to comment and let me know how the outcome was, do that too. I would be interested in hearing from you. So the special offer right now, my drawing course is absolutely free. You go click the link at the bottom, you put in your email and you will go right to the course. No fluff, no extra hoops to jump through. So click the link below, get the free course, go through the free course. Then once you go through the free course, you'll get to the offer to join the coaching. All right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.